find it beneficial. I think when we're young, we tend to have some different priorities, and certainly I did. Um, I thought like wealth and glory and a complex life would be the way to go. But as I got older, I learned that I'd rather have a little more simpler life. So I redefined those three things and came up with what I feel is a formula that will help anybody be satisfied with the life that they lead and the legacy they left behind. So what I did is, instead of wealth, we need to pursue wisdom. Instead of glory, we need to pursue God. And instead of complexity, let's work on simplicity. Um, Wisdom is made up of knowledge, experience, and good judgment. Knowledge and experience will come with time, especially if you follow certain guidelines, what we call the 6 L's, which we're going to get to in a second. Good judgment's a little tougher. You need to learn how to exercise good judgment, and that starts when you're young. So, if you're a 20-some-year-old watching this, I highly recommend as you have children, you start working on their practicing of good, of smart judgment, good judgment, of common sense very young in their life. They need to understand there's consequences when you make some bad judgment. So, you start, preschool, kindergarten, they need to respect their teacher. And as they get older, it's so important that they use good judgment in the situations that they're in and the friends that they associate with and the things that they do. It's important that they learn, sort of what's good and what's bad in life. So you need to really work with them, and hopefully they'll have an element of common sense that's just born into them. I feel that's one gift that God gave me from the get-go. I always feel like, I made some good choices in my life. I kept myself out of some bad situations. But when you lack good judgment, you can get into, a lot of trouble. And you see so many people who tend to make the same mistakes over and over again. And it's partly, a lot of it has to do with, their judgment. Continually make, the same mistakes. They, maybe they overspend or they make bad judgment in, their relationships. And, it's so sad to see that. And you hope that, you can learn from it and maybe come up with an idea on how to fix it. There's some great material out there on common sense and good judgment. And it's all part of wisdom. And if you can develop that along with the knowledge and experience, you're going to have wisdom licked. And, it's amazing. I picked up I sit down and try to read the Bible sometimes, and I just started looking at the book of wisdom, and it's amazing how something that was written thousands and thousands of years ago can be applied to today. The first chapter actually talks a little bit about, getting yourself out of bad situations and not doing things that are wrong. So, I highly recommend sitting down and taking a look through the book of wisdom in the Old Testament and applying some of that to your life. So, but with that being said, wisdom will come. And I think what you got to do is, I like to apply what I call the 6 L's. I think if you utilize these 6 L's in your life, you're going to develop wisdom. And my wife actually has a sign in her kitchen. It says, live, love, laugh. And they are the first 3 L's. And the next 3 are learn, listen, and lecture. It's simple, live. That's where your experience comes from. Don't be the person that sits on the couch and every day is the same. Get out and enjoy things and have passion, develop a passion for things. And, I love to travel when I was up to it. And, I was big into car racing, but I also liked history and I would go any place. I mean, do anything. I tried to open my mind, even though I wasn't like a big time, I wasn't like a guy that would sit at the opera. I would certainly go to an opera or a play and expand my horizons. And you live every day. Enjoy life. You got to live. And love. Like, you know, like the three wise men, the great act of love when they went and took the gifts to baby Jesus. Love people you don't know. You got to try. You got to work on, loving thy neighbor and such. And, if you can have some love in your heart, you're going to develop wisdom because you're going to develop relationships. And relationships are going to blossom. And when you can have a great relationship with family members, with friends, your life is going to be so enriched. And you're going to be much wiser for it. Laugh. People say, well, what does laughter have to do with wisdom? You need to not take everything so serious. There's many people that are smart, but they're not wise. They tend to overanalyze everything they do in life. They tend to just sit and they worry and they, almost to the point where you feel they're going to crack. So you need that laughter. You need to break it up. You need to bring joy in your life. And laughing is a fantastic thing to do. I mean, I think about, if I'm flipping through the channels and there's an episode of Seinfeld on, I've probably saw some of the episodes 25 times, but if I know it's going to make me laugh, I'll sit and watch it because I want to laugh. We need to laugh. Learn. Obviously it goes hand in hand with wisdom, but learn as much as you can. And sometimes, you're going to be, especially you young people in college, you're going to have classes that don't interest you. But you know what? I had them too. Try to appreciate what is being taught. Because the more you learn, the more you can talk to people. And learn about people. That's very important. If you want to have relationships with people, you got to learn about them. You got to ask them questions, show an interest. And again, it helps to develop wisdom. And the one thing we don't do enough of is we don't listen. So listening is a huge part. How often are we in conversations where, somebody's talking and telling us a story and all we're thinking about is, well, what story are we going to come back with? And in the meantime, you don't even know what that person's talking about. So it's important to listen intently. And, over the last couple of weeks, I've really been trying hard to get God and, angels and saints and stuff to talk to me, especially when I go to sleep at night. And I ask them to talk to me and, I want to listen. I've learned that listening is important. And when you listen, you're going to develop more wisdom. And my son will tell you this. My son will know about the lecture. But you know what? Wisdom is only good if you share it. So you need to lecture. You need to talk to people who maybe are, who could use some advice. Don't be afraid to sit down and lecture them. Communicate with them. Help them. If you feel you have something to offer, offer it. We've all have a degree of wisdom in our life. We've all had different experiences. We all can bring something to the table. So work hard on developing wisdom. And that'll be 1/3 of your equation to a fulfilled life. The next aspect is God. Forget the glory stuff. Forget about you. And bring in God. We talked previously in other videos about how important it is to make God the focal point of our existence. and make him the center, just like the sun is the center of the universe. But you need to do that. And if you do that and let God handle the things that you can't, give that stuff up to God, you will have a life fulfilled, because you're doing things for the greater good. You're helping mankind out. And there's no better way to follow God and follow what he wants you to do than the Ten Commandments. And in addition to that, sit down and take a look at the Book of Wisdom in the Old Testament. That will give you some great guidelines on how to live your life. Both of those things were written thousands of years ago. And it's amazing how much can be applied to today's world. Now we make laws that are thousands upon thousands of pages. I mean, realistically, the Ten Commandments can be written out on one page. And yet, those laws are the basis of really our existence. So you have some wisdom and you have God. And use all the tools available to you that God has to offer. I find like communion is an awesome tool that God has, because he wants you to share in him. So whatever your church, your religion, your belief does for communion, do it with them. Be part of it. Take part in it as often as you can. And not only that, you know, if you're not feeling religious or you don't go to church, have a meal and try to talk to God. And more importantly, try to listen. And I'm very fortunate that, you know, in my life, because, you know, in finding Catholicism, I found the act of penance. And I often had a difficult time going to confession. But last Thursday, I have a very good friend who's a priest who I just, you know, think the world of. And I had my wife ask him to come up, and I did my confession with him. And I didn't leave anything out. I didn't gloss over anything, you know. And previously I had done that. There were some things that I was very embarrassed about and ashamed of, that I sort of said, you know, I'm sorry for doing some of these things. They were hurtful and such. And, you know, and I was granted absolution and such. But with him, I told him these things still bother me. They keep me up at night sometimes, because even though I've talked to God about them, I never felt that I was totally forgiven. So, you know, I did a confession, and it was just an amazing, incredible thing for me. So, you know, use those tools. The final thing is simplicity. I have another sign in my house. It says simplify. By making your life as simple as possible, and I don't mean being a simple person, I just mean keeping it simple. Don't get too busy. You know, I tell you to live and do things and enjoy things, but you also got to be able to sit back and sometimes remember, and sometimes just appreciate. You know, there's nothing better for me than to sometimes sit back and just put some music on that I like listening to. Music that, you know, makes me feel good. Music that, you know, makes me emotional. And it's fantastic to do those things. And it's important to do it. So, you know, so many times people get so caught up in being so busy that they don't really take the time to be simple. And simple things that are important is sitting down with your family and eating a meal. Turning the TV off